Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Ooh. Yes? Testing. One, two. People in the back. Beautiful. All right. My name is Natalie Batcherville. I'm a professor at Concordia, and I also try to help out the coalition from time to time. We decided, as Ted, I think, explained, to merge two workshops. One of them was going to be the Defund 101 workshop, which is kind of going to be kind of an introduction to defunding the police. And the other workshop is the École sans police workshop. And the Defund the Police Coalition has had a committee that has been working on getting the police out of schools in Montreal. And some of the people on that committee have also been doing work with youth. And so some folks will talk about that. What I was thinking, since actually all of us are kind of sort of like last minute additions, we didn't necessarily prepare anything. And since it's been the end of a long day of like, processing and taking in lots of information, we thought we could try to open things up and hear from you all how you feel, what's on your mind. What are questions that you have, either kind of about defunding more broadly or about getting the police out of schools? And we'll talk, but I'm also curious to hear what we can also learn from some of you. So I'll let everyone introduce themselves, and then while they're doing that, think of some questions and some thoughts and some things that you want to share. Sounds good? Yes? Great.
What language? Okay. Who speaks English? Who speaks French? Oh, ben. Bon, I'll do it franglais là. So my name is Marlene Lopez, and the reason I became involved. No, you're asking too much. I'm not even supposed to be here. So, the reason I got involved in the coalition was because I am the single mother of a Black autistic kid, and I saw the intersections of discrimination that he faced at an early age, and became concerned when I discovered, because it's something that until recently we don't even talk about, the presence of police in schools. And so there's a committee called École sans police, where these are members that are investigating the impacts of policing in schools. And so that's what brings me here, and that's part of the work that I'm interested in, because I went to what we call a école d'adulte. It's usually like 17 and 20 years old. Those that can't finish secondaire. And so when I went, I was supposed to speak on Women's Day about feminism. And so I got to the school, and when I pull up, there were two patrol cars. This is in Ahunsik. So there were two patrol cars, and I couldn't even park in the driveway. So then I went around, and then when I went to the school, the social worker said, I asked her, why is there so much police presence? Was there an accident? And she says, no, this is like this every day. And I'm like, why? And she's like, I don't know. So that really, it was two officers in uniform at the entrance. And so I think it's time that we start talking about the impacts of police, and not just police, but policing in schools, because it's not just police officers, it's teachers. It's the constant use of punishment with, especially, more with black folks, black kids. And also, we need to start talking about adultification and how, black kids can't be kids. And so they're disciplined even more. And this was supposed to be a presentation, so sorry, but.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to even lead with some of the same things, so thanks for bringing those up about, but the policing doesn't just mean the police. My name is Nanre Nafsigar. I'm a Nigerian American. I'm new to Montreal. I'm a assistant professor of African and Black Studies in education. So one of the things that I do is I teach teachers. People are like, what do you do? I teach teachers. So I'm an educator myself, but I also help to educate the educator. And so when I came to Montreal, one of the first things, I've also been involved in various movements in the United States, defund movements, the movements for Black lives, been involved in a lot of anti-policing, abolitionist work. So when I came to Montreal, I was like, who am I supposed to talk to? And of course, the names of these wonderful people came up first. And so I reached out and started to figure out, just learn about the space, learn about what was happening in Montreal. And to much of my dismay, and to what I thought would not exist, because I was coming to Canada, right? And for many people, it was like, oh, Canada, you know, and so to my dismay, I came to Montreal and I was like, what's going on with the Black community here? And to my dismay, it was the same issues, which we know because I'm an internationalist. I was raised in Nigeria. And so we know that anti-Blackness transcends borders and transcends spaces and is deeply embedded in our global society, not just in our cities. So I came here and started to just listen to folks, start to learn from folks. Janai was murdered just, I think, 6 weeks or no, maybe about 2 weeks into our stay here. Janai was murdered. It impacted me, even though I did not know him or the family, because my son was Janai's age, has dreadlocks, loves music, plays and goes to the same studio where Janai went to learn music. And so really feeling the impact of always being a mother, trying to protect my children, but also having to go beyond that to say that it's not enough for me to personally just raise up my kids. It has to be something that is systemic, and it has to be a collective movement that we all participate in. And I really appreciate that you talked about how policing is not just about the presence of physical police, right? There's so many police in our schools, right? The police is the teacher who is intolerant to the 5-year-old child, who sends that 5-year-old child to the principal's office for playing with somebody else. The police is the administrator who calls social welfare because the child is not dressed well in the winter and says that the parent is not taking care of the child. The police is the school counselor. The police is the curriculum, right? The curriculum that teaches us that some kids are more valuable because white history is represented and the history of indigenous peoples, of Black peoples, of peoples all over the world is not represented. So the police and policing exist in so many elements of our education system. So yeah, I was also supposed to do a short intro, but yeah, we're all very passionate about these things. So yeah, happy to hand over to you. Hope you talk more about the actual eco sans police. But I'm sorry, I don't speak any French. So, but I'm learning, and I'll soon be with you all on that.
Thanks, Nanre. And I'm glad you provided. So Nanre just said, "Oh, I'm not going to talk a lot. I'm just going to provide moral support." And here you are, doing a beautiful speech. And inspiring. So yeah, thanks a lot. I'm Julian, he, him, and I joined École sur Police 3 years ago because back then I was a substitute teacher. So the Uber driver of substituting, they call you at 6 a.m. and send you to the quote-unquote bad schools. And what I discovered in the bad schools, especially one that I really loved the kids there, is basically a majority of racialized kids who are brilliant, usually speak 4 languages, and are constantly policed, constantly. And it's revolting. And so when I learned of the coalition, of the existence of the coalition, I definitely agreed with the carceral state of police, there you go, I did a slip, but of schools, in the carceral nature of schools in Quebec, and how usually Québécois, Francophones, Burlen, whatever, would treat kids who needed love, care, education, and to be listened to, and instead they were constantly punished, constantly not taken seriously. And so this had to change, and I will gladly talk about what we do, but maybe first, I mean, this is an introduction, so. Or shall I? A little bit about École sur Police. Okay. So again, I apologize. There are lots of cool and younger and more charismatic people who could usually talk about this coalition, but I'll do my best to represent them today. So our goal at first when we started was to get cops out of schools and parks. So basically all the surveillance of kids within their academic life and also just their everyday life, because if there's one thing we all believe in this group is that cops have no business in the life of a young child or a learning child. And that goes all the way to of course, when you're 18 or even in university. So at first, what we tried to tackle were what they call the agents socio-communautaires, which is the police presence in schools, and usually they're there as social workers, so for prevention, of course, but I see people shaking their heads. Obviously, this is every time the police wants to collaborate or help or whatever it is, always surveillance oriented, always. I was in charge, and Ted too, Ted Rutland, were in charge of going through, for example, all the, what's it called? Well, every year the SPVM produces a document about their mission. And they were very proud in the 2000s, earlier, they were bragging about how specifically they were targeting people in Côte des Neiges communities and working hand in hand with Montreal's black community, Montreal's immigration community of immigrants, to create programs. This one program called Pepsi, where kids were taken with cops as a partnership and would go around in neighborhoods to kind of learn how to become a good cop with the cops in their own neighborhoods, with their own families. So that's the kind of collaboration that the SPVM tries to favor. Now it's less easy to access this information, and so the first year of this is my transition, the first year of our activism was basically learning that it was very difficult to press any agenda on the administration, because understanding the administration, understanding the school board system, having people to talk to has proven to be like Kafkaesque, like very hard to understand. So after the first year, Rain has arrived from Hamilton, exactly, and injected some imagination and more youth in our group, which was critical. We got some funding, and we were able to hire a youth coordinator, and then things changed, and we switched the momentum to bringing parents and also students, actual students. And so one great thing that Rain and Maraf, the youth coordinator, were able to do in collaboration with Karam as well, there you go, it's happening, okay, was to, and please interrupt me if I talk too much, but, well, okay, was to create discussion groups in schools for kids to just, have pizza and talk about their experience of policing, their experience of surveillance, and just not necessarily we still have the goal of kicking cops and out of schools and getting the policing out of the mentality of the teachers, but also creating solidarity and creating spaces where kids could actually feel safe and know that there were people who were willing to listen to them. So we have other projects, but I think I'm going to stop for now because. Yeah.
All right, so I said that I would come back to everyone, and basically we'd love. Oh yeah, sure.
I didn't even want to come out.
Yeah. Oh, we have a mic for the audience.
Yeah.
All right, that's okay. Okay, great. You know what works, but yeah.
So when we talk about police presence in schools or policing in school, another thing that I would really like us to think about is the intersections of disability and citizenship. Because if we remember, I remember when I just got to Canada, I was without status and my child was without status. And I quickly went online to see like access to school when you don't have status. And the first thing I came upon was Solidarité Sans Frontières had a article on the case of Danielle's case. And it's this school, the student that was deported. And he was taken from school because a teacher called the police. So a lot of times when we talk about policing in school or police presence in school, we don't think about, how migrant kids, like their experience and what this means, having a police officer inside a school physically, and also, the system of policing embedded in schools, what this means for migrant kids.
All right, so questions, thoughts, things that have been on your mind since this morning or maybe just now? Don't be shy. I don't really, I'm moderating. All right, there's one hand, two hands, three hands.
Bonjour, ça va être en français. Donc, ma question est la suivante. Que pensez-vous de la formation scolaire des policiers? Pour ma part, je vais mettre mon commentaire. Donc, quelle est votre impression de la formation scolaire de nos policiers quand ils vont à l'école de police? Trouvez-vous que le programme aux études est incomplet? Pour ma part, j'ai fait des cours à l'université en santé mentale et j'avais un policier qui était dans mon cours et il mentionnait que la majorité des personnes qui étaient à l'école de police n'avaient pas des cours en santé mentale.
So the question was about, I think, the training of teachers and the fact that, the training of police officers. The training of police officers, and that police officers don't, at least from what you had heard, didn't have training specifically around mental health. I think there's maybe two different ways to answer your question. One is to try to answer it, and maybe they will try. I will try to not answer it by saying that one of the things that, so one of the premises of abolition, police abolition, prison abolition, is the idea that the police can't be reformed. And so that you can't really educate a police officer to be a better police officer, in part because the job of the police officer will always be the job of a police officer, which is to put people in cages, and also the police officer will always have the right to kill, right? That's part of the definition of what distinguishes a police officer from another professional, is they have the right to use legitimate use of force and even of killing. And so one way to answer it is that, not only does it not necessarily accomplish anything, but also there are two risks associated with focusing on that. One of them would be that they would probably ask for more money, right? And Lord knows they already have so much money. And they just, all of them can't stop giving them money. So it would cost more money, and then also there's the risk of further legitimizing the police, of giving people the idea that we have a better, kinder police, even though at the end of the day they're still doing the work of policing, which is surveillance, which is imprisoning, which is whether it's youth, right? Youth detention, incarceration, deportation, all of these things are still in their mandates. And so that's how I would answer. I don't know if there are other thoughts about ways to perhaps, but that's, maybe you have something else to answer about police training?